but she looks nothing like she used to look. Well, yes, when she was younger, but even when she first started to date him.
Amazon founder and Washington Post owner Jeff Bezos' extramarital affair is back in the spotlight. Federal prosecutors have reportedly obtained evidence tying leaked text messages from Bezos to his girlfriend's brother.
It's over. Lauren Sanchez's sentence is a final goodbye forever. No more rumors, no more second chances, and no way to turn back. What started as whispers in Hollywood has now exploded into a headline no one saw coming. The woman who once lived in the glare of cameras is now facing the kind of ending that even her biggest critics didn't expect. But how did we get here? And what happened behind the scenes before this shocking final blow? The courtroom freeze. The air inside wasn't just still, it was frozen, as if the entire room had been caught mid-breath. It wasn't the kind of silence you find in an ordinary courtroom. This was heavier, denser, as though the walls themselves knew the weight of what was about to happen. The faint hum of the air conditioning seemed louder than usual, every click of a pen echoing like a gunshot in the quiet. The bailiff's steps moved slowly across the polished floor, each one deliberate, as if time had chosen to walk at half its usual speed. Leather shoes against marble created a hollow sound that seemed to bounce back from the high ceilings, magnifying the tension. Even the flicker of the overhead fluorescent lights appeared to hesitate, as if they, too, didn't want to disturb the gravity of the moment. Lauren stood there, her presence commanding but stripped bare of the public armor she had worn for years. No gleaming jewelry, no designer gown carefully chosen for the cameras, just a plain, muted outfit that could have belonged to anyone. And that was the strange part. The woman who once owned every room she walked into now looked like she was simply part of the crowd. She had faced the media before, standing under a storm of flashbulbs with the kind of poised smile that could silence even the harshest critics. But here, in this room, there were no photographers to charm, no headlines she could bend in her favor. There was no next day's story to shape. There was only this moment, raw and unfiltered. The judge's voice cut through the stillness like the first crack of thunder before a storm. Calm, controlled, but carrying the weight of finality, he spoke the words everyone had been waiting for and dreading. The sentence is final. 3 words. That was all. No long explanation, no dramatic pause to let the press scribble it down, just a clean, decisive end. And yet, those 3 words were heavy enough to crush an era, to erase years of carefully crafted image in an instant. Around her, the gallery sat frozen in their seats. Some stared down at the floor, unwilling to meet her eyes. Others dared to look at her directly, studying her face for the smallest crack, a twitch of the mouth, a flicker of the eyes, anything that might reveal what she was truly feeling. But Lauren gave them nothing. Not a tear, not a tremor. If her heart was pounding, she didn't let it show. She was still, almost statuesque, as if the sentence had turned her to stone. It wasn't just a legal decision. It was more than that. It was a public declaration, a formal, unflinching statement that the life she had built, the empire of perception she had polished for years, had come to its official end. And the strangest part? There was no chaos after the verdict. No outburst, no scrambling, no raised voices. The quiet remained, as if everyone present understood they had just witnessed something irreversible, a door slamming shut, locking away everything that had come before. Some in the room would later say they could almost hear the weight of her past collapsing in that moment. Not with a crash, but with the subtle, haunting sound of something slowly breaking apart. For Lauren, this was not just the end of a chapter. This was the moment where the book itself was closed, the cover sealed, and the story she had written so carefully for the world was taken out of her hands for good. The days of glitter and gold. It's almost impossible to believe that just a short while ago, Lauren Sanchez was living a life most people only dream about. She wasn't just a name in the headlines, she was a symbol of glamour, a walking headline herself, a helicopter pilot who could glide above the skyline.
Now our own Lauren Sanchez is soaring to new heights as a helicopter pilot.
When I first became a reporter, I did it because there was no one else I thought that looked like me.
And there certainly aren't many chopper pilots who look like her either. Lauren taking her love of flying and launching a new career.
A media personality who knew exactly how to own a camera, and a woman whose confidence seemed untouchable. Everywhere she went, eyes followed. She wasn't simply attending events, she was the event. Walking beside one of the richest men alive, she seemed to belong in a different world entirely, one made of diamond lights and limitless possibilities. There were private dinners on remote islands where the air itself felt expensive. Champagne flutes clinked under moonlight so bright it looked staged. There were tables filled with food that most people couldn't even pronounce, let alone taste. And at every event, her place was always the same, front and center, close enough to power that it seemed to radiate from her. Her Instagram was a glossy, curated gallery of this dream life. Sunsets from yacht decks, perfect hair whipped by the wind from helicopter blades, and smiles that looked as if they'd never known worry. To the world watching, she had made it. She wasn't just living the dream, she was the dream. But reality has a way of whispering truths that no filter can hide. And in her perfect sparkle, shadows had started to grow. They began quietly, almost politely, like background noise you don't notice at first. A deal here that fell apart without warning. A collaboration that seemed promising, but ended without explanation. Small moments that could be dismissed, and at first, they were. Then, the whispers got louder. Friends who used to be first to answer her calls suddenly took days to reply. Invitations that once came without asking stopped arriving. And then came the leaks.
The girlfriend of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is reportedly linked to published text messages about their affair. According to the Wall Street Journal, prosecutors say Lauren Sanchez sent her brother texts about her relationship with Bezos.
Not the kind you could laugh off or explain away with a clever statement. These were sharp, deliberate, and personal. Words and images slipped into the public eye, carefully chosen to cause the most damage. Conversations that were never meant to leave private rooms found their way into headlines. Behind the elegant photos and carefully timed public appearances, there were arguments over trust, loyalty, and betrayal. Even those closest to her started to wonder if this was the cost of flying so close to the sun, or had the fall already begun long before anyone noticed. Still, on the surface, the glitter remained. She smiled for the cameras. She wore the gowns. She stood beside the man everyone envied. But under it all, the gold was beginning to chip, and the shine was hiding something no one wanted to admit. A storm was on its way. Behind the closed doors. The weeks leading up to the sentencing were nothing like the glamorous life she once flaunted. There were no sparkling gowns, no yachts slicing through turquoise waters, no paparazzi flashes lighting her way. Instead, it was a world of shadows, a storm that the public never saw, but those on the inside could feel in every whispered conversation. Sources close to her spoke of frantic meetings that stretched deep into the night. These weren't the kind of meetings held over champagne and laughter, but tense gatherings where every word was measured, every glance carried weight. Phones buzzed with urgent calls at strange hours. Screens lit up with messages so explosive that even the bravest insider hesitated to forward them. Some of these messages, according to those who knew, held the power to end careers, destroy alliances, and permanently change how certain people were seen in the world's eyes. A single screenshot could be as dangerous as a weapon. And then came the rumors that the betrayal had come from within her circle. People she had trusted with her secrets, her plans, even her vulnerabilities, now stood accused of selling those very things to the highest bidder. It wasn't just a knife in the back. It was the realization that the hand holding it belonged to someone she once called a friend. Others told a different version that she had made a move too daring, too reckless. And this time, the gamble had gone wrong. She had played high-stakes games before and won, but this wasn't the kind of game where you could bluff your way out. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain: the damage could not be undone. Every path forward now seemed to lead to the same place, the inevitable moment in court when the sentence would be read. Lauren was no stranger to pressure. She had been in front of live cameras when everything could go wrong. She had navigated scandals with the kind of grace that made people admire her even more. But this was different. This wasn't about image. This wasn't about keeping the headlines favorable or spinning a story to her advantage. This time, it was about survival. In those final weeks, she became a ghost in her world. The glamorous events stopped. The social media posts slowed. Even the smile that had once been her greatest weapon disappeared from view. Those who did see her said she carried an unshakable weight, like someone counting down the days not to a party, but to an ending she couldn't escape. Behind the closed doors, the storm raged on, and by the time the rest of the world caught a glimpse, it was already too late. The questions that linger. Was this her choice? Or had the decision been made for her long before she ever stepped into that courtroom? These are the questions that won't let go, the kind that keep echoing long after the doors have closed and the crowd has gone home. Could she have walked away earlier, before the headlines turned sharp and the whispers turned into shouts? Some think she had countless chances to step off the path, to choose a quieter ending. Others believe she was already too deep, tangled in a web where every move led her closer to the inevitable. Those who knew her paint a picture of a woman who was never afraid to take risks. Fiercely ambitious, always scanning the horizon for the next move, she had a way of thinking 2 steps ahead of everyone else. It was part of what made her magnetic, that ability to make life seem like a chessboard where she was always the queen in control. But here's the truth about even the best strategies: they only work when the rules stay the same. And in the world she lived in, a world of wealth, influence, and power plays, the rules could shift without warning. One day, the same connections that opened doors could just as easily slam them shut. The same allies who stood at your side could suddenly switch sides, and no one would explain why. That's the cruel part. You can prepare for almost anything: an attack from the outside, a scandal, or even betrayal. But what do you do when the very game you've mastered changes overnight? When the moves you thought would protect you suddenly lead straight into a trap? Some insiders whisper that she underestimated the forces working against her, that she thought her charm and connections could shield her from the fallout. Others say it wasn't underestimation at all. She knew exactly how dangerous it was, but believed she could outrun the danger. And maybe that's the most haunting question of all. Did she still believe she could win until the very last moment? Or did she know deep down that the ending was already written, and she was just playing out the final scene? In the end, we may never know the truth. What we do know is this: in the world of high stakes and high walls, survival often depends on knowing when to walk away. And sometimes, even the strongest players find themselves standing alone when the rules change and the board is cleared. What comes after goodbye? Now, with the sentence final, the focus shifts. The question isn't just about what happened, it's about what happens next. The courtroom is behind her. The headlines are already starting to fade. But her story? That's still unfinished. Will she vanish completely from the public eye, retreating to quiet places where no cameras follow and no reporters ask questions? Some say she might choose the kind of disappearance that turns her into a mystery, the sort of person who becomes a whispered name at dinner parties, followed by a long pause and the inevitable: I wonder what happened to her. Or maybe she'll reinvent herself. Start over in a new city, a new industry, under a new name even. Some people have done it before, walked away from the ashes of a public fall and built something entirely different. She has the skills, the presence, and the determination. All she would need is the right door to open. Then there's the possibility of her telling her version of events. A book, a documentary, an exclusive interview that flips the narrative and makes people question everything they thought they knew. She has the kind of story that sells a mix of glamour, power, betrayal, and survival. And if she chooses to speak, the world will listen. Of course, there's also the quieter path, letting time do the work. Years from now, people may only remember fragments, a red carpet moment, a magazine cover, a few scandalous headlines. And in that space between memory and forgetting, she could rebuild her life away from curious eyes. The truth is, every option comes with its risks. Disappearing could give her peace, but it might also mean losing the influence she worked so hard to build. Reinventing herself could bring a second chance, but it might also pull her back into the same spotlight she's trying to escape. Telling her story could win sympathy, or it could ignite a whole new round of controversy. Whatever choice she makes, it will mark the beginning of a completely new chapter. And like every great story, the next page could be the most surprising of all. Maybe it will be a comeback that no one saw coming. Maybe it will be a quiet, graceful exit. Or maybe, just maybe, it will be something none of us could predict. Because here's the thing about goodbyes, they're not always the end. Sometimes, they're just the start of something else entirely. So there it is, Lauren Sanchez's Sentence is Final, Goodbye Forever. A story that began in glittering ballrooms and on the decks of luxury yachts, ending in a silent courtroom with just 3 words: "See, inseparable." Friends said it looked like a movie, 2 people falling fast, hard, and completely into each other. Within months, they were living together. Their lives blended smoothly. They cooked dinner together, went on weekend road trips, and made memories that felt like forever. Lauren brought excitement into Anthony's quiet world. She talked about her dreams of becoming a top news anchor, of having her show, of being someone people looked up to. Anthony supported her. He believed in her. He was proud of her fire. He too shared his dreams with her of one day starting a family, living in a cozy home, and building a life with someone who truly knew him. Lauren listened. She smiled. She said she wanted those things too. From the outside, they looked perfect. She was bold and beautiful. He was steady and strong. They seemed like a match made in heaven, but heaven has clouds too. As time went on, Anthony started to notice small changes. At first, they were easy to ignore. Lauren started coming home late from work. She said it was for meetings or filming. Sometimes she'd cancel date nights last minute. She said she was tired or busy. Anthony didn't complain. He knew her career was important to her. But then, those little changes became bigger. Lauren started spending more time on the phone, glued to her emails or networking with people Anthony had never met. She became distant, physically and emotionally. The woman who once cuddled on the couch with him every night now barely made eye contact at dinner. He'd ask how her day was, and she'd just nod or give short answers. It felt like she was slipping away. Anthony tried to talk to her. He asked if everything was okay, if she was stressed, if something had changed. But every time she'd laugh it off. "I'm just busy," she'd say. "Don't worry so much." So, he didn't. He held on to hope. He told himself it was just a phase, that once her work slowed down, things would go back to normal. Because deep down, he still believed in the love they shared. He even bought a ring. He remembered the day he walked into the jewelry store, thinking of her smile. He imagined the proposal, the surprise on her face, the happy tears. He planned every detail carefully. Then one evening, after dinner, he knelt and asked her to marry him, and she said yes. For a little while, it felt like magic again. They celebrated with friends. They looked at houses. They talked about the future. For the first time in months, Anthony felt like they were back on track. But that joy didn't last. Not long after the engagement, the same old signs returned, and this time, they were harder to ignore. Lauren became cold again. She avoided serious conversations. She made excuses. Anthony could feel her slipping through his fingers like sand. Something inside him told him things weren't right, and soon he'd find out just how wrong things had become. Cracks beneath the surface. At first, Anthony thought things would get better after the engagement. He truly believed that putting a ring on her finger would bring them closer. He hoped the promise of forever would heal whatever was going wrong, but instead of moving toward each other, they began drifting further apart. Anthony says Lauren started changing in ways he didn't expect. She became increasingly distant, both mentally and physically. She wasn't just busy with work anymore.
Lauren Sanchez signed a prenup, and that's raising eyebrows.
She was fully absorbed in it. Every day brought more phone calls, more events, more meetings that ran late into the night. Sometimes she didn't come home until long after midnight. Other times, she didn't come home at all. When he asked her about the long hours or last-minute plans, she would snap, "You don't understand how this business works." And maybe he didn't, but he understood what love looked like. And this wasn't it. The woman who once dreamed about lazy Sundays, family dinners, and cozy nights watching movies had become someone who chased bright lights and big names. Anthony says Lauren became obsessed with making it big, being noticed, getting ahead, and building her image. And with each new step, she climbed on the career ladder. Anthony says she stepped further away from their relationship. She started going to industry parties alone, networking events, award shows, and media dinners. Lauren made her way into the rooms where powerful people gathered. At first, Anthony thought it was exciting. He was proud of her. But soon, it felt like he didn't belong in her world anymore. He says she stopped including him. She stopped asking about his day or caring about his thoughts. He wasn't her partner anymore. He was her shadow, someone she came home to when she was too tired to keep up the act. He felt like a placeholder, not a priority. And then came the moment that changed everything. Anthony says he started to notice strange behavior, calls she wouldn't take in front of him, messages she quickly deleted, sudden changes in plans that didn't make sense. He tried to ignore it at first. He didn't want to believe anything bad, but the signs kept growing, louder and clearer. One evening, he decided to ask her directly, "Is there someone else?" he said, heart pounding. Lauren denied it. She said he was imagining things. She acted offended, even hurt, but Anthony could tell her eyes didn't match her words. Days later, he found a message on her phone. It wasn't just friendly, it was romantic. It was from someone he had never met, someone she had been spending time with while pretending to work late. The betrayal hit him like a punch to the chest. He says he stood in their kitchen, staring at the phone, and felt his entire world fall apart. All those memories, the laughs, the dreams, the future they had planned, it all suddenly felt like a lie. He didn't scream. He didn't fight. He just shut down. Anthony packed his things quietly. He took his clothes, his books, the small pieces of his life that still belonged to him. He left the engagement ring behind, sitting on the table next to a photo of them smiling together. He didn't say goodbye. He walked out of the home they once shared, and he never looked back. For more than 20 years, he stayed silent. No interviews, no social media rants, no revenge stories. He carried the pain inside, locked up in a part of his heart he tried to forget. He moved on, but the scars remained. And now, as Lauren prepares to marry one of the most powerful men in the world,
one of the world's richest men has come a long way.
Anthony has decided it's finally time to speak. He says he isn't doing this out of anger. He isn't here to ruin her life. He just wants to tell the truth before the world writes a perfect fairy tale that ignores the past. Because sometimes the cracks beneath the surface are the most important part of the story. Why he stayed silent for so long. A question many people ask is, if Anthony Miller went through so much pain, why didn't he say anything back then? Why didn't he come forward when the breakup was still fresh and raw? Why wait over 2 decades to finally share his truth? The answer, according to Anthony, is simple: because he still cared. Yes, Lauren had broken his heart. Yes, their love ended in betrayal. But Anthony says that at the core of it all, he still had respect for the time they shared. He didn't want to destroy Lauren's name or ruin her future. He wanted to let her go without adding more damage. Even after everything that happened, a part of him remembered the good days. He remembered the woman he fell in love with, the one who used to smile just because he walked into the room, the one who once believed in love as deeply as he did. And because of that, he chose silence. He chose peace over pain. He chose to protect her image, even if it meant keeping his wounds hidden. Anthony says there were many moments when he was tempted to speak out. There were nights when the anger kept him awake, when the questions haunted him, and when he just wanted someone to understand what he had been through. But every time, he stopped himself. He reminded himself that speaking out might make things worse not just for Lauren, but for himself, too. Instead, he focused on healing. He worked on rebuilding his life, away from the spotlight, away from the cameras, and away from drama. He started over quietly. He took up coaching, helped young athletes, and tried to live a simple, honest life. Over time, the pain didn't fully disappear, but it did soften. He thought he had put that chapter behind him for good. But then things changed. As years passed, Anthony started seeing Lauren everywhere on TV, in magazines, at Hollywood events. She was becoming a well-known face, a celebrity in her own right. From her days as a news anchor to her appearances at elite parties, she was rising fast. The media praised her beauty, her drive, her connections, and then came the big news. Lauren Sanchez was dating Jeff Bezos. Suddenly, she wasn't just a media personality.
How's wedding planning? Is it fun? So you asked.
She was the partner of one of the richest, most powerful men in the world. And not long after that, the headlines changed again. Engagement, wedding plans, dresses, locations, and guest lists, it was everywhere. That's when something inside Anthony shifted. He says it wasn't about jealousy. He had long accepted that their lives had taken different paths. He didn't want Lauren back. But what hurt was watching the world tell a fairy tale story that had completely erased the truth. Their story. His story. The years they spent together, the promises they made, the heartbreak that followed it was like none of it ever happened. As if he had been just a footnote in her life, not a major chapter. He says it felt like the truth was being buried under fame, money, and sparkle. And while Lauren's future looked golden, the past they shared remained in the dark. So, Anthony made a choice. Not for attention, not for revenge, but for clarity. He says he wanted to speak now because he felt people had the right to know that the woman being celebrated had a past that wasn't so perfect. He wasn't trying to destroy her image, just to balance it. He wanted to tell his side, to be heard, to give the world a full picture before they celebrated a version of Lauren that left out some important pieces. This wasn't about bitterness. This was about honesty. Anthony knew the timing would raise eyebrows. He knew people would question his motive, but he says he waited this long out of respect, and now he's speaking out for the same reason. Respect for the truth, for himself, and for the years he spent loving someone who ultimately chose a different path. The side of Lauren that the public never saw today. When people hear the name Lauren Sanchez, they think of glamour, success, and power. She's the woman seen in designer gowns at red carpet events, flashing a bright smile beside Jeff Bezos. Her life looks like a dream, filled with fancy vacations, luxury yachts, and magazine photo shoots. To the public, she seems bold, confident, and full of charm. But Anthony Miller, the man who once planned to marry her, says that's only half the story. According to him, the world sees the polished, perfect version of Lauren. But he knew a different side, the one that didn't wear makeup for cameras, the one who didn't smile for crowds. He says the real Lauren, the one behind closed doors, could be very different from the woman the world admires. Anthony says Lauren liked to be in control always. She wanted things her way, and only her way. At first, it seemed like she just knew what she wanted in life. But as time went on, that strong personality turned into something colder. If something didn't go the way she liked, she would shut down or grow distant. sometimes even angry. It wasn't loud shouting or dramatic fights, it was silent distance, icy stares, and cold replies. In public, she was charming and friendly. She knew how to work a room, how to smile at the right time, laugh at the right jokes, and impress the right people. Everyone loved her. But behind that smile, Anthony says, she was calculating. Not in a cruel way, but in a focused way, like every step was part of a bigger plan. Her ambition, he admits, was powerful. She wanted to rise, to grow, to be someone important, and that's not a bad thing. But Anthony believes her drive often came at a cost. He says Lauren would choose success, even if it meant leaving people behind. If someone couldn't help her move forward in her career or social circle, she slowly stopped caring about them. He says that's exactly what happened to him. There were nights when Lauren would come home late. No explanation, no "sorry I'm late" or "how was your day?" She would just walk in, tired and distracted, then head to the bedroom or stay glued to her phone. Anthony would be sitting on the couch, waiting to talk, hoping for just a little time together. But some nights, she wouldn't say more than a few words. It was like he had become invisible in his own home. He remembers sitting across from her during dinner, feeling like a stranger. He would try to start conversations, talk about their future, their day, even silly things just to make her laugh. But her mind was somewhere else, always somewhere else. He says he gave her his heart completely. But she seemed to have already moved on, even while living under the same roof. He began to wonder if their love story had turned into a stepping stone for her dreams. What hurt him most wasn't just the coldness, it was the way she slowly slipped away without ever admitting it. There was no big fight, no clear ending, just a growing distance, like two people standing on opposite sides of a wide, silent room. Anthony says this wasn't the Lauren the world knows. The public sees the success, the beauty, the charm, but he saw the cracks, the parts that don't get posted online or talked about in interviews, the moments of cold silence, the decisions that left him behind. He doesn't say all of this to attack her. He says it to show that she's not a perfect fairy tale princess. She's a real person who made real choices, and sometimes those choices left others hurt. Maybe Lauren did what she thought was best for her. Maybe she believed her dreams were more important than staying in a relationship that no longer fit her path. But for Anthony, it felt like being replaced by ambition. And that kind of pain doesn't fade quickly. Now, as the world praises Lauren for her upcoming wedding, Anthony hopes people understand that behind every public success, there's often a private cost. Not everything that glitters is gold. What this means for Jeff Bezos and the world. Now that Anthony Miller has finally broken his silence, the question on everyone's mind is this: what does all of this mean for Jeff Bezos? Jeff isn't just any man. He's one of the richest, most powerful people in the world. When someone like him decides to marry someone like Lauren Sanchez,
Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon and one of the world's richest men, has married the former journalist Lauren Sanchez in Venice.
it becomes more than a private moment. It becomes a public event. Cameras will be watching, headlines will be written, and millions of people will be following every detail. But behind the fancy suits and shining diamonds, many are now wondering if Jeff knows who he's marrying. Does Jeff know about Lauren's past with Anthony? Has he heard the stories of the emotional distance, the betrayal, the ambition that left people behind? And more importantly, does he care? Anthony says he isn't speaking up to create drama or bring down anyone. He doesn't want to speak for Jeff. After all, he's never met him. He doesn't know what kind of relationship they share behind closed doors. But as someone who once stood in Jeff's shoes, someone who once loved Lauren deeply and dreamed of a future with her, Anthony hopes Jeff understands the full picture. He hopes Lauren has changed. He hopes that the woman Jeff is marrying is not the same woman who left him feeling invisible and heartbroken years ago. Because if she hasn't changed, Anthony worries history might repeat itself. And this time, the consequences could be even bigger, with not just hearts, but reputations and legacies on the line. The public has been quick to react to Anthony's statements. Some people are fully on Lauren's side. They say, everyone has a past. We all make mistakes. People change. And they're right. No one is perfect. Many believe Lauren deserves a second chance, especially if she's found true love with Jeff. But others are more cautious. They're not so sure. They wonder if Lauren's ambition and charm are still leading her choices. They ask if Jeff is seeing the real Lauren or just the polished version shown to the world. And more importantly, they question whether his love story is truly built on trust or just a glittering illusion. What Anthony has done is shake the perfect picture. Before his voice entered the story, it all seemed smooth. A glamorous love story between a self-made billionaire and a strong, confident woman. But now, people see cracks. They see the pain left behind. They see that love stories, even the most high-profile ones, often come with shadows. News outlets are buzzing. Online forums are filled with debates. Some call Anthony brave for speaking up. Others call it badly timed. But no one is ignoring it. His words have struck a chord. Because at the center of it all is a question everyone can relate to. Can people change? This isn't just about Jeff and Lauren anymore. It's about trust. It's about relationships. It's about how we all sometimes ignore red flags when we're in love, and how the past, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of showing up when we least expect it. For Jeff, this moment might not change anything. Maybe he already knows about Lauren's past. Maybe they've talked about it. Maybe he accepts her, flaws and all. Love can do that. It can make people forgive and forget. And maybe their relationship is stronger than anyone realizes. But for the world watching, this is a reminder. It shows that even the most picture-perfect couples can have secrets. Behind the luxury yachts and private jets, there are still human emotions: love, fear, regret, and hope. Anthony's story brings the fairy tale back to reality, and for many, that makes the story even more powerful. As the wedding day gets closer, people will continue to watch, not just because of the designer dress or the guest list, but because now there's more at stake. People aren't just seeing a couple, they're seeing a history unfold in real time. And no matter what happens next, one thing is certain. This love story is no longer just about the present, it's about the past too. In the world of fame, money, and power, love stories aren't always what they seem. On the outside, everything looks shiny and perfect. But behind the scenes, there are often pieces of pain that never made the headlines. Anthony Miller's story reminds us that no one is perfect. Even people with big smiles and bright futures have pasts that can be messy and full of mistakes. Lauren Sanchez is about to begin a brand new chapter. Her wedding to Jeff Bezos will be grand, beautiful, and watched by millions. But behind the flowers and dresses, there's a history, a real, raw, and painful story that shaped the woman she is today. Maybe Lauren has changed. Maybe she's learned from her past. Maybe this love with Jeff is real and lasting. Or maybe, as Anthony warns, the same patterns will return. Whatever the truth is, one thing is clear. Silence can't last forever. Anthony's words may not stop the wedding. They may not change Lauren's future. But they've opened a door. A door to honesty, reflection, and maybe even growth. For viewers like you, this story isn't just about celebrities. It's about trust, heartbreak, and how we all carry pieces of our past even into new beginnings. As the world waits for the wedding, one voice from the past has reminded us all. No matter how big the ring or rich the groom, the truth always finds its way out. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over.